I'm Liyana Hassanel and you're tuning into Nightline, the top stories. Gig Workers Commission Bill to be tabled in the Dewan Rakyat in July. And heavy rain and strong winds wreak havoc in Kuala Lumpur and Petaling Jaya. Good morning. A bill to establish the Gig Workers Commission will be tabled in the Dewan Rakyat in July. Prime Minister Datuk Seri Anwar Ibrahim said the government decided to form the commission due to the huge number of young people in the gig economy. In announcing the matter at the 2024 National Youth Day celebration at Dataran Pahlawan in Melaka, Anwar said the tabling of the bill is based on a proposal from youths in the gig economy sector. According to the Prime Minister, the youth want the Gig Workers Commission as more than 100,000 of them are working in the sector.
Kerajaan terus setuju dan kita akan persiapkan undang-undang dan insya-Allah boleh dibentangkan di Parlimen pada bulan Julai akan datang. Maknanya bila kita dengar suara beliau, kita cuba bukan sekadar santuni tapi laksanakan sebaiknya.
Anwar previously announced the establishment of the commission at the closing of the Bumiputra Economic Congress in Putrajaya last March. He said it was needed to protect the rights of 1.12 million gig workers, with a focus on meeting social needs, resolving contract disputes, and promoting the career advancement of the group concerned. On May 1st, Anwar called for work on the setting up of the commission to be expedited. On another note, the Prime Minister said the government's objectives behind the rationalisation of fuel and electricity subsidies in Malaysia must be fully understood and grasped by the country's youth. Anwar emphasised that Malaysian youth must also empower themselves and demand that the implementation of subsidies in the country is specifically targeted towards the underprivileged group. The Prime Minister said that this was because subsidy schemes in the country have only benefited wealthy business owners and 3.8 million foreigners.
Kerajaan baru-baru ini umpamanya umumkan penyasaran subsidi diesel. Anak-anak muda harus tahu kerana kita terlibat secara langsung. Anak-anak muda terlibat dalam kegiatan perniagaan yang menggunakan diesel, kita kecualikan dari bayaran itu.
He also mentioned that thorough discussions with leaders in Sabah and Sarawak were conducted following the exemption of diesel subsidies there. At the same time, Anwar added that 85% of Malaysians were not affected by the decision made by the government to increase the electricity tariff. He reiterated that only multinational corporations and large export-oriented companies making millions in profits will be impacted. At a separate event, Anwar stressed that the government does not intend to introduce new taxation instruments, but rather aims to implement a more equitable targeted subsidy system that meets the needs of the people. He said that the recent announcement regarding targeted diesel subsidies exempted low-income groups such as fishermen, smallholders and taxi drivers from these taxes.
Kita perkenalkan yang saya sebut penyasaran subsidi. Diesel, kerana diesel yang bocor ni bilion ringgit, itu yang bocor. Ya. Yang kita bayar kepada maha kaya, industri-industri yang besar ni, yang untungnya 1 bilion, kita masih subsidi elektriknya. Jadi, dan orang-orang asing tak bayar cukai, 3.5-3.8 juta orang pun kita bayar subsidi. Jadi kita akan perkenalkan sistem untuk supaya syarikat besar orang kaya bayar dan orang asing bayar.
Anwar said this in a speech at the Madani Convention in Air Keroh, Melaka on Saturday. On Tuesday, Anwar announced that the cabinet had agreed to implement targeted diesel subsidies in Peninsular Malaysia. He said for now, targeted subsidies will not involve Sabah and Sarawak. To avoid an increase in prices, 10 types of public transport vehicles and 23 types of goods transport vehicles will continue to enjoy diesel subsidies. Later in Johor, the Prime Minister said racial sentiments, narrow understanding of religion and parochialism will only lead to disunity and sow the seeds of hatred among the people. He added such traits must be discarded by all segments of society in order to save the country from ruin.
Tarikkan paham perkauman, tarikkan paham agama yang sempit, bukan membawa rahmah dan walaqad karramna bani Adam, angkat martabat keinsanan, tetapi memecah belah, menanam kebencian. Ataupun tarikkan dari segi wilayah dan kawasan dan faham kenegerian yang keterlaluan sehingga akan menyebabkan negeri aku paling hebat benci ke negeri lain. So sudah selamatkan negara ini.
Anwar said this after launching the national level 2024 Unity Week celebration at Dataran Angsana Johor Bahru Mall on Saturday night. He also urged the younger generation to take up the responsibility of upholding unity and defending the peace. Earlier in his social media posting, Anwar said Malaysia is ready to offer assistance to the people of Papua New Guinea following the deadly landslide that has claimed hundreds of lives in a remote village on the island. He added that Malaysia stands ready to provide assistance to the people in Papua New Guinea after expressing sympathy with the people there. He also noted that with the tragedy taking place in a remote, mountainous and rugged region in the early hours of Friday morning, the humanitarian response will be especially challenging. Meanwhile, in Papua New Guinea, emergency services are racing to reach villages hit by the massive landslide in isolated Enga province, where hundreds of people are feared to have died. A United Nations official based in the capital on Saturday said only 4 bodies have been pulled from the debris so far, adding that more than 300 villages may be entombed. However, due to rugged terrain and damage to major roads from the landslide, the emergency team of medics, including military and police, are facing difficulty in reaching the area. The landslide has also blocked highway access, making helicopters the only way to reach the area. According to Papua New Guinea media, at least 1,182 houses were buried in the landslide, but it remains unclear how many people are trapped under the rubble. The disaster reportedly hit Kaukalam village in Enga province at around 3 a.m. local time on Friday. Heavy rain and strong winds wreaked havoc in Kuala Lumpur and Petaling Jaya on Saturday evening. The bad weather also led to uprooted trees, blocking off several roads and damaging vehicles. In Bangsar, fierce winds ripped off the roof of the Putrajaya apartment building, causing debris to fall on vehicles parked on the ground floor. It was understood that the storm had occurred since 5 p.m. Several videos showing high winds tearing the roof off the building also went viral on social media. Fortunately, no casualties were reported. The Kuala Lumpur Fire and Rescue Department also received multiple distress calls regarding fallen trees in various parts of the city. At Jalan Bukit Pantai, also in Bangsar, a large uprooted tree had blocked all 3 lanes of the road heading towards the Air Selangor building. Nearby at the University Malaya campus, it was reported that several large trees had fallen and one uprooted tree had crushed a car. At the Pantai Ria PPR, uprooted trees had fallen onto at least 3 cars in the area. Other areas affected are at Taman Tun Dr. Ismail and Jalan Klang Lama. Meanwhile, in Petaling Jaya, it was reported that a tree fell at Jalan Gasing near Petron Petrol Station, while another fell in a house compound in Section 5. Authorities said there were no victims involved in any of the incidents. Road users are advised to use alternative routes, while works to cut and remove the fallen trees and debris are underway. Malaysia welcomes the additional provisional measures by the International Court of Justice, ICJ, including the order for Israel to immediately halt its military offensive in Rafah. In a statement on Saturday, the Foreign Ministry said the ICJ also ordered Israel to immediately keep the Rafah border crossing open to allow for unhindered access to humanitarian assistance. The ministry also said that Malaysia strongly urges the international community to intensify pressure on Israel to comply with the additional measures, as failing to do so would only make a mockery of the sanctity of international law. It added Malaysia will continue its efforts for the establishment of an independent and sovereign state of Palestine, based on the pre-1967 borders, with East Jerusalem as its capital, as well as the admission of Palestine as a full member of the United Nations. Meanwhile, the Zionist regime bombed the Gaza Strip, including Rafah, on Saturday, despite an order from the United Nations top court for it to immediately halt its military offensive in the southern city. The Zionist forces continued to advance into Rafah's southeast and moved towards the city's densely populated western district. Israeli strikes were also reported in numerous areas, such as the Saftawi neighborhood, Deir al-Balah and Beit Hanun, killing and injuring dozens of Palestinians. The regime has also continued its operation in the Jabalia refugee camp, targeting more residential buildings and public facilities, including schools and UNRWA facilities. The International Court of Justice on Friday ordered Israel to halt its Rafah offensive and demanded the immediate release of hostages still held by Palestinian militants. Israel, however, gave no indication it was preparing to change course in Rafah, insisting that the court had got it wrong. The Communications Ministry will hold a meeting with social media platform operators, including Meta, in Singapore next month. Its Minister Fahmi Fadzil said the meeting was to stress on several matters, including the principles of media freedom practiced in Malaysia. According to Fahmi, the session was a follow-up to Meta, who had previously taken down a news report uploaded by a Malaysian media organisation on the meeting between Prime Minister Datuk Seri Anwar Ibrahim and Hamas Political Bureau Chief Ismail Hasidah in Qatar on the 13th of this month. The minister said Meta should not have done so, since the reports involved are not fake news or slander. However, he said the matter had been resolved when the news report was reinstated, after a media conference about it was held.
Kita harap pihak Meta akan lebih cakna tentang perkara ini dan insya-Allah bulan Jun nanti saya akan ke Singapura untuk bertemu dengan semua platform media sosial bagi memberi penegasan tentang beberapa perkara termasuk prinsip kebebasan media yang harus mereka juga berikan kerjasama.
Fahmi said this when met after officiating the National Journalists' Day Hawana exhibition in Kuching. In addition to local journalists, Hawana 2024 was also attended by journalists from 11 countries, with 6 of them from the Southeast Asian region. In fact, according to Fahmi, on the opening day of Hawana on May 27th, the Prime Minister is expected to announce several incentives for media practitioners in Malaysia. A non-commissioned officer with the Malaysian Battalion, Malbat, Sergeant Faridah Abdul Rahman, was laid to rest at the Masjid Al-Anwar Muslim Cemetery in Kampung Tengah, Pokok Sena in Kedah on Saturday. She died after collapsing at the United Nations Interim Force in Lebanon, UNIFIL base in Maracah. The remains of the 39-year-old officer arrived at the mosque at 9 a.m., accompanied by Commander of the Royal Malaysian Air Force, RMAF Joint Force Lieutenant General Datuk Nur Muhammad Akmar Muhammad Dom from the RMAF Training College in Kepala Batas, Alor at 8:10 a.m. The funeral prayer was led by Armed Forces Religious Corps, Kagat Deputy Director General for Policy and Management Brigadier General Muhammad Hamzah Adam at 9:41 a.m. More than 500 people, including Royal Malaysian Navy, RMN, RMAF and Army personnel were at the mosque to perform funeral prayers, before Faridah was buried according to military funeral ceremony customs. Funeral proceedings concluded at 10:20 a.m. Faridah had just arrived from leave in Malaysia and had alighted from the bus which brought her back to the Maracah camp when she collapsed at about 2:25 a.m. local time. She began her service with the armed forces by joining the army in 2007 and was assigned to Kagat. Prior to being selected for Malbat 85011, Faridah was the Senior Supervisor for Islamic Affairs for the Royal Malay Regiment's 19th Battalion, Mechanized in Sungai Petani. Faridah is survived by her husband and 4 children, namely Nurul Shifa 13, Muhammad Afnan 10, Nurul Jannah 8 and Ainul Mardia 4. Coming up, Singapore Airlines incident. Malaysians among 43 still receiving treatment. Stay tuned.
Kajian mendapati rata-rata perokok kehilangan 14 tahun daripada hidup mereka.
Terdapat risiko yang tinggi seseorang itu mendapat kanser.
Adakah vape memberi kesan sama seperti rokok?
Tuhan nak tunjuk saya demam. Dah 2 bulan
Tak
ni.
baik ni. Rokok dan vape. Diskusi mendalam hanya di Hello Doktor Ahad 5.30 petang di TV3 dan stream juga melalui tonton.
Nak cari tempat untuk OOTD? Persembahan Cahaya Interaktif serius boleh buat gambar korang seleh habis. Raikan ulang tahun ke-40 TV3 dengan keajaiban pameran seni digital Immersio Inspirasi Generasi by TV3 dari 20 Mei hingga 9 Jun di Museum Telekom Kuala Lumpur. Jom, ajak family, kawan dan partner sekali, okey? Selamat Hari TV3. #Inspirasi Generasi. Kami sentiasa bersamamu.
President of the United States has been shot.
Hari berdarah yang menjadi permulaan segalanya.
Sir, need to camera there. I'll check it out. Coming with you. No, let me take the heat. Let me see any footage you have the back part of the plaza.
Dari saksi menjadi suspek. Vantage Point, Ahad ini 9 malam di Magnificent 8 TV3 dan stream sekarang melalui tonton.
The foreign news. 43 people who were on board a Singapore Airlines flight that hit severe turbulence on Tuesday remain hospitalized in Bangkok. According to a hospital in the Thai capital, the 43 patients are in 3 different hospitals in Bangkok. It is understood that 34 patients are currently at Samitivech Sri Karin Hospital, and 7 of them, comprising of 2 Malaysians, 3 Australians, 1 British and 1 New Zealander, are in intensive care. The other 27 patients from the flight at the hospital include 5 Malaysians, 8 British, 6 Australians and 2 Philippine citizens. Previously, it was reported that 22 patients had spinal cord injuries, while 6 had brain and skull injuries, but none were life-threatening. Last Tuesday, 1 passenger died of a suspected heart attack and dozens were injured after Singapore Airlines flight SQ321 flying from London to Singapore encountered an extreme turbulence. The flight, which was carrying 211 passengers and 18 crew, then diverted to Bangkok for an emergency landing. Russia on Saturday said its army had captured another village in eastern Ukraine in the latest of a series of small territorial gains for Moscow. According to the Russian Defense Ministry, its troops took control of Arkhangelsk in the Donetsk region, a small frontline village located near the town of Osheteri, which Russia claimed to have captured early this month. It added that its forces are advancing in the Kharkiv region in northeastern Ukraine after repelling 2 counterattacks launched by Ukrainian forces. Ukrainian officials in the meantime said 3 people had been killed and 2 wounded in Russian attacks on Donetsk. Millions of Indians are voting in the next to last round of a grueling national election, with the combined opposition trying to rattle Prime Minister Narendra Modi's campaign for a 3rd consecutive term for himself and his Hindu Nationalist Party. Saturday's voting in 58 constituencies, including 7 in New Delhi, will complete polling for 89.5% of 543 seats in the lower house of Parliament. The voting for the remaining 57 seats on June 1st will wrap up a 6-week election, with the votes to be counted on June 4th. Most polls predict a win for Modi's Hindu nationalist Bharatiya Janata Party, which is up against a broad opposition alliance led by the Indian National Congress and powerful regional parties. However, a less than expected voter turnout in the previous 5 rounds of voting seems to have left both sides guessing about the outcome of the election. Rakyat sets up title clash against Axelsen. Sports when you come back.
Nak cari tempat untuk OOTD? Persembahan cahaya interaktif, serius, boleh buat gambar korang seleh habis. Raikan ulang tahun ke-40 TV3 dengan keajaiban pameran seni digital Immersio Inspirasi Generasi by TV3 dari 20 Mei hingga 9 Jun di Museum Telekom Kuala Lumpur. Jom, ajak family, kawan dan partner sekali, okey? Selamat Hari TV3! #Inspirasi Generasi. Kami sentiasa bersamamu.
Walaupun dia berupa seakan-akan biawak, tapi binatang dog ni dia satu spesies, daripada segi hukumnya dia halal dimakan.
Kita bukannya kutip karang mana kita rasa nak kutip. Tak. Kalau kita tak kutip karang tersebut, lama kelamaan dia akan mati di kawasan dasar laut.
Kita ada peluang untuk buat kerja-kerja restoration macam ni. Kita rasa kita ada contribution dekat kampung kita sendiri.
President of the United States has been shot.
Hari berdarah yang menjadi permulaan segalanya.
Sir, need your camera. There, I'll check it out. Coming with you. No, let me take the heat. Let me see any footage you have the back part of the plaza.
Dari saksi menjadi suspek. Vantage Point, hari ini 9 malam di Magnificent 8 TV3 dan stream sekarang melalui Tonton.
We're back with sports. Football, the Super League. 3 matches were played on Saturday night. Sabah FC pulled off a 2-1 victory against Kuching City FC, while PDRM were helped to a 1-1 draw by Penang FC. At the Chera Stadium, Johor Darul Takzim JDT recorded their third consecutive win by thrashing Kuala Lumpur City 5-1. Fernando Forestieri opened the scoreline in the 42nd minute following a VAR review, before Wan Muniz extended their lead 3 minutes later. The hosts narrowed the deficit when Paulo Josue converted a penalty in the 9th minute of stoppage time. Forestieri restored the Southern Tigers' 2-goal lead just a minute after the hour mark, with Muniz netting JDT's 4th in the 71st minute. Shami Safari capped JDT's 5-star performance with their 5th in the 88th minute. With the win, JDT remains on top of the standings with 9 points, while KL City are in 11th place with 1 point. On to badminton, the 2024 Malaysia Masters. Former All-England champion Lee Zijia stayed on course for his maiden title on home soil after advancing into the men's singles final for the first time on Saturday night. Zijia was in his element as he swept aside Hong Kong's Angus Ng Ka Long 21-15, 21-17 in 43 minutes. The Thailand Open champion, however, will face an uphill task in Sunday's final, as he will come up against Denmark's world number 1, Victor Axelsen. In the mixed doubles event, newlyweds Goh Sun Huat, Siobhan Lai are just 1 match away from winning their 2nd World Tour title this season after reaching the final. The world number 18 independent duo ousted compatriots and Paris Olympic-bound Chen Tangji, To Yi-wei 21-11, 21-19 to set up a meeting with third seeds Rino Fervaldi, Pita Haningtyas Mentari of Indonesia for the crown. However, it was the end of the road for up-and-coming national men's double pair 1 out of 1 Junaidi, Yap Roy King. The duo exited the semi-finals after a 13-21, 19-21 loss to second seeds Kim Astrup and Anders Skrærup Rasmussen of Denmark. Also shown the exit was top women's doubles pair Perlitan and Tina. The second seeds fell short in the bid to reach their 2nd consecutive final after going down 16-21, 11-21 to South Korea's Lee Yu Lim, Shin Sung Chan in the semi-finals. Moving on to Sepak Takraw, the 2024 ISTAF World Cup. The national squad advanced to the final for the 3rd time after defeating Indonesia 2-0 in the team's semi-finals event on Saturday night. The first Regu, Haziq Hairul Nizam, Amirul Zazwan Amir and Nur Aizat Nordin awarded the first point for Malaysia with a straight sets 15-12, 59 win, before second trio of Muhammad Shahir Muhammad Rosdi, Farhan Adam and Azlan Alias clinched the winning point with a 59-57 victory. The victory sets the stage for the squad to once again face Thailand in the final match on Sunday. The English FA Cup now. Manchester United claimed the trophy after stunning Premier League champion Manchester City 2-1 in the final at Wembley on Saturday night. Garnacho opened the scoring for the Red Devils in the 30th minute after mistakes from City defender Josko Garvidal and goalkeeper Stefan Ortega. Mainu then added a second goal in the 39th minute, with Doku pulling City back with a goal in the 87th minute for several nervy final minutes for United. That included 7 minutes of overtime. Hundreds of meal accounts worth 32 million ringgit frozen. This and more local news when Nightline returns.
Get ready, ladies. It's time to shatter the stereotype. We talk career, health, finance, relationships, and everything in between. So grab your coffee cups and wear your sassiest smiles. This talk show is all about you. Catch Women Talk every Saturdays at 5 p.m. on TV3. Stream also on Tonton.
Nak cari tempat untuk OOTD? Persembahan cahaya interaktif serius boleh buat gambar korang slay habis. Raikan ulang tahun ke-40 TV3 dengan keajaiban pameran seni digital Immersio Inspirasi Generasi by TV3 dari 20 Mei hingga 9 Jun di Museum Telekom Kuala Lumpur. Jom ajak family, kawan dan partner sekali, okey? Selamat Hari TV3. #Inspirasi Generasi. Kami sentiasa bersamamu.
Pembunuhan yang paling kejam yang pernah berlaku di negara ini lah.
Dia diseksa. Itu yang saya tak boleh nak lupa.
Keadaan masa tu nampak kelang kabut sikit.
Memang sedih. Kes itu menggemparkan negara.
Ada sesuatu sedang berlaku di sana lah. Kita nak cari kebenaran.
Menyoroti kes-kes yang pernah menggemparkan dunia dan Malaysia, segalanya akan dirungkai dalam Fail Mahkamah setiap Rabu 9 malam. Terbaharu di TV3 dan stream sekarang ditonton.
Welcome back. The sole survivor of a fire that killed 3 family members in Pulau Pinang on Saturday said his mother and brother ran back into the burning shop lot home to find their younger sister. In the 7 a.m. blaze in Balik Pulau, the 3 family members perished. The sole survivor, 30-year-old Rashidin, said his mother ran into the shop lot after hearing his younger sister calling for help from inside. Soon after that, his brother followed her. Rashidin said the fire and heat were too intense that he was unable to enter the building as he felt like fainting. That was the last time Rashid saw them, and they never made it. All 3, 58-year-old Nurul Baujia, Muhammad Ibrahim, 33, and Rabia Jasmine, 20, died in the blaze. It was 2 minutes after 7 in the morning that the authorities were alerted about the fire. 2 fire engines from the Balik Pulau station were dispatched to the scene. Upon arrival, the firemen found that the fire was raging. The fire caused thick smoke because it involved furniture such as carpets and mattresses. After putting out the fire by 8:50 a.m., firemen found the bodies of 2 victims on the ground floor, while the other one was on the top floor.
Pada mulanya, 3 orang tu dah keluar dah. Dia masuk balik untuk ambil adik dia dekat atas. Jadi bila dalam keadaan tak boleh dikawal, yang mangsa terselamat ni dia lari keluar. Yang 2 orang tu terperangkap di dalam. Jadi menjadikan jumlah masa tu 3 orang lah.
Meanwhile, the owner of a shop next to the victim's shop said he managed to alert his neighbours after seeing a plume of smoke at about 7 a.m.
Lebih kurang dekat 7 jam sudah api keluar kuat. Macam tu ya.
Keluar dekat luar lah.
Tak ada apa. Buang angkat orang punya barang taruh tiap-tiap lah. Saya sama dia sama-sama pergi ketuk pintu dia tu
pintu lah. Panggil dia keluar lah.
Panggil punya luar tu.
The victims' bodies were sent to Balik Pulau Hospital for autopsy. The cause of the fire and losses are being probed. The Federal Police has frozen hundreds of meal accounts worth 32 million ringgit, believed to be used for online gambling activities in the country. Inspector General of Police Tan Sri Razaruddin Hussein said the probe was underway to identify the syndicate's mastermind. The IGP said the Money Laundering Crime Investigation Team, AMLA, has so far succeeded in freezing the mule accounts used by the syndicate, estimated to be worth 32 million ringgit. Razaruddin added that efforts to track down those involved are being carried out for investigation under the Anti-Money Laundering and Anti-Terrorism Financing Act 2001. He also said that the police also found that mule accounts were not only used in online gambling, but were also used for fraudulent investment activities. As such, police also advised the public not to easily give or lend bank accounts to any individual because there is a possibility that they will be used as mule account. Started with fireworks over Sydney's Opera House as it returned for its 14th year. With that, I'm Liyana Hassanel. Thank you for tuning in and have a great weekend.